The final live event of the season is coming in hot. The latest update reveals that the plot of this chapter got darker, weirder, and kind of stranger. The Dark Voyager is a new character in Fortnite, introduced to us in Chapter 7 as a sort of antagonist. From the very first day we saw him, it feels like he's been watching us for a long time, possessing an intelligence far too advanced to just be toying with us. Aside from his clear connection to the last reality, it seems he has a backstory that goes way back. Let's remember that the Dark Voyager arrived in this new reality via a cube cradle. While it looks different from the ones we've seen in previous chapters, we can confirm right now that he is the superior being of the last reality. This makes sense, considering the origin, the Cube King, is with the Seven, and the Cube Queen died in the water. This character's story actually begins at the very start of Fortnite, when he arrived on the Athena Island as an astronaut. Even back then, he had a photo with Agent Jones, implying they've known each other for a long time. We didn't see him again until the final season of the first chapter, Season X, when he appeared in a new form known as the Eternal Voyager. He stood out because instead of a human face, he had a skull, very similar to the one he has now, though his current version has cubic shapes, as if he suffered some kind of corruption. This is where all the theories and evidence begin. It all starts in the Batman and Fortnite 0 Point comics, where the Eternal Voyager was present. He died after entering the 0 Point while it was calibrating, all because of his desire to travel eternally. The worst part is that they were outside the loop at that moment, so technically this was a canonical death. When someone dies calibrated by the 0 Point's energy, their body parts are scattered across various realities, similar to what happened to Gino in the Zero War comics. It's very possible that over the years, the Dark Voyager reconstructed himself throughout the Omniverse, and when his consciousness and physical form returned, he ended up in a reality of pure evil. Whether he was originally evil or good is something we'll discuss a bit later. Currently, the Dark Voyager is on the Golden Coast Island, trying to manipulate the 0 Point. The Order arrived there after receiving a signal from Reality 783 prior to the 0 Hour event. Based on her findings, not only is the 0 Point involved, but the Dark Voyager is specifically trying to get his hands on the fragment currently present on the island. The fact that he's already inside the lethal labs suggests he likely realized that one of the members of the Seven is still alive and present on this island, so he's trying to accelerate his plan. Meanwhile, the Order began researching and evaluating the 0 Point, realizing she needed help, specifically from the Seven. However, the situation with the team is complicated. We still don't know for sure who is alive. We know the Imagined is in really bad shape, though she could return just like Gino does in the comics. The Foundation might be alive, but stuck in another reality. As for the others, the Scientist, the Visitor, and the Origin, they were consumed by Chrome. The Paradigm are missing, so the team is currently incomplete. As we know, the last reality is infamous for wanting to destroy realities, specifically ours. But if the Dark Voyager wanted to destroy our island, he would need to act both outside and inside the loop. According to the Scientist's previous research, investigating the 0 Point and making it react requires being inside the loop. This is likely because the 0 Point is more active during matches when there is high action on the island. That would be the exact moment to execute the plan and force the 0 Point to react. If the Dark Voyager manages to enter the loop and exploit the 0 Point's energy, he could generate an explosion, freezing time, and causing events very similar to those in Season X. Based on the latest intel, it appears the Order has either been kidnapped or taken out. It's pretty tragic that just as the Seven started to return, they might have already lost another member. The Order was at the Lethal Labs facility, but it seems she was found either by the Dark Voyager himself or his henchmen. The bottom line is, she was captured, but before she disappeared, she managed to send an audio message to Jones. So, in a few weeks, Jones will receive the message and realize that the Order is still alive. Now, let's circle back to the Dark Voyager, who seems to be working with Lynx from the OG mode. This is really interesting because we've never seen Lynx as a villain, unless you count when she worked with Midas, but that's a different story. On her loading screen, we can see a ton of cube runes, implying she possesses some power from the cube itself. Finally, her gift might be that she is a traveler between realities, since we haven't seen a character present in both the OG mode and Battle Royale simultaneously. I imagine she's now working for the last reality, and wants to secure the 0-point fragment from the OG mode. That is, if there even is one, because we are one season away from entering the vault, and if there's no fragment or 0-point there, we are literally screwed. And now, here comes the plot twist of the whole story. It's possible that the Dark Voyager is actually good. I know, that sounds weird, but listen. So far, we've seen that the Dark Voyager hasn't done anything bad with the 0-point shard, he's just maintaining it and making it react. Plus, in his other styles, we see the red cube and the blue cube. We know those two are benevolent, at least to loopers. On the other hand, there's the golden cube, which we know is evil because it was used by the Cube Queen and the Cradle itself. Maybe he destroyed the battle bus, thinking it would end the loop, not knowing it would cause the tidal wave. I know this is weird and doesn't have an official explanation yet, so we can't theorize too deeply. We also have to remember that if you had a keen eye during the final 0-hour event, you would have seen a strange message sent to us. The message read, "Training complete phase completed. Protocol error. The Dark Presence." This message is clearly from the Dark Voyager, and he surely watched how we defeated the Dark Presence during 0 hour. I imagine that for him, and for the last reality, seeing us fight was a form of training. They tested us, likely preparing for a superior threat. And what is this new threat going to be? To understand why that power is such a big deal, we gotta talk about the last reality again, because this squad uses their cubes as foot soldiers with the plan of invading different realities, probably intending to hoard the entire universe for themselves. Back in Chapter 2 Season 8, we found out the Cube Queen was the leader of all of them, basically because she controlled the Golden Cube. In fact, during her mission to invade our island, she summoned her army, which is where we first saw this specific type of ship that is now hovering right above the Golden Coast Island. And actually, the one sitting inside it is the Voyager. With the arrival of this ship on the island, we also get the TV interference shown in the cinematic trailer, where we can read a message that the last reality probably meant to send to their own forces. In it, they say that their training and learning phase is complete, and that they've spent 8 years and 9 weeks in base reality, which is basically Battle Royale mode, since that's how long it has existed. According to them, this adds up to 106 billion years, because they're counting the fact that every 20-minute Battle Royale loop can have up to 1 million active matches at once. That's why the total amount of time is literally around 7 times longer than the age of the universe itself. However, during this process, we spotted 2 errors that came up for them. The first was the appearance of the Dark Presence, a villain that emerged from the spirit realm, something that, for now, exists only in the reality of 783. And by the way, he was already defeated in the final event, with Jones bringing in the entire army of collabs. With that victory, they also recovered the fragment of the 0-point, and this sent Hope, Jones, and us to the new island, I assume to recover another part of the 0-point fragment. If you don't know what this 0-point is, let's just say it's like the heart of all the Fortnite islands. And at the end of Chapter 4, well, it exploded, and its fragments were scattered across different realities. This was the same event where Fortnite stopped being just a game and officially became a metaverse. With that cleared up, let's move on to the second error in the message, the anomalies. They had been contained, but with the Voyager's arrival on the island, they've been reactivated. That's exactly why, in every match, we get these random phases where anything can happen in the game. Finally, the TV also shows that Phase 2 has already started, and that a program encoded in human language has been executed. This is probably referring to sending the Voyager to the island. Still, we're left wondering what exactly he's going to do. The thing is, when we talk to Hope about it, she has no idea what this ship is planning to do next. In fact, she also confirms that Daigo and Kendo stayed behind to protect Oninoshima after we helped them save it. This reinforces the idea that when it saved us, the fragment took only us and not the whole island. So I understand that this isn't an error, it's meant to let us help recover the remaining missing pieces. And if you're wondering where that first fragment is now, it's in our possession, and is currently being investigated in one of the new zones on the map. With all this, we'd already have plenty to theorize about, but luckily, Fortnite officially showed us this notebook with a reference to the movie Kill Bill just before Chapter 7 started. In it, we see the Imagined crossed out and the Foundation being written in. These two are characters who are part of the team known as the Seven. This group was formed to defeat an organization called the Imagined Order, which is led by Gino, a character who hasn't even appeared in the game yet. We've only seen him in the comics. And by the way, the comics are also where the Imagined dies, which is why she is crossed out in the notebook. This organization also had the Zero Point under its control and used it to trap all the loopers on the island, forcing them to repeat a loop every 20 minutes and lose their memories after finishing it, something the Seven didn't like. That's why a war started between the two sides, which ended with the Seven's victory in Chapter 3, Season 2. It was in the very next season that the Herald invaded the island in the name of the Last Reality. She had the power to turn people into chrome, and with that, she managed to defeat almost everyone from the Seven. However, a year later, Jones and Sloan joined forces and went back to the past to prevent all the events I just listed. This would explain why the Seven are alive now. When they generated this multiverse, they were also thrown to different locations in the various realities, just like the fragments. For the moment, the only member of this group we know is on this Golden Coast island is the Order, since she left this audio log near the drop pod she arrived in. In these logs, she makes two things very clear. First, we aren't the only ones chasing the fragments. This could mean that in this chapter, we'll also have another rival, like what happened last chapter with the Dark Presence. Second, the Seven are not exactly going through their best moment anymore. In other logs, she mentions the scientist, another one of her teammates who is known for being the smartest in the group, and even she doesn't know his whereabouts. This supports the theory that each member ended up in a different place and we don't know where. In fact, this makes sense when talking about the original visitor, who, after the Zero Point explosion, could have traveled to the OG reality, which is the same as hers, but taking place in 2025. Anyway, the Order will leave a fourth audio log in the coming weeks, where she'll try to send a message to call the rest of the team to come help her face the Dark Voyager. And actually, going back to him, we have to remember the list of names, where we also saw that the second note was the bus driver, something he has already achieved. Although, during the last week, we did quest to rebuild the bus. As for the rest of the names, I personally have no idea what they could mean. For the past few years, so many organizations have popped up in Fortnite. You wouldn't have enough hands to count them all. Some of them played a huge role in the game's history, while others are still driving the storyline forward. So, it's time to figure out what happened to some of the most powerful groups on the island, where the Imagined Order disappeared to, where the Seven are now, and why the Last Reality will definitely make their presence known again. I think a lot of rookies who first logged into Fortnite in Chapter 7 or 6 haven't even heard of the Imagined Order, but these guys were terrorizing loopers for several years. The Order actually became the very first organization we got to know. Back then, we didn't know about all the members of the Seven, and the mysterious corporation that ruled the entire island was called the Government. As we later found out, the secret government is the Imagined Order, or to be more precise, an organization controlled by the order that was needed, so the big shots wouldn't get their hands dirty. Basically, it was a kind of link between the loopers and the Order itself. But after the events of Chapter 3, Season 2, when we managed to thwart Gino's plans to reboot the loop, these guys just vanished. But where? They probably ran off to stock up on bundles and V-Bucks using my creator code, of course. Anyway, if you look at the Zero War comic, which was written in collaboration with Marvel, some details fall into place. After the island flip, which was necessary to defeat the Cube Queen, the Imagined Order ended up on the flip side. To not lose such a great chance to deal with the loopers once and for all, Sloan threw all her forces into seizing the island, and she actually succeeded in the initial stages. However, over time, we were still able to reclaim key locations, cornering the Order at their base. But Gino had his own ace up his sleeve, the Collider, which they almost launched, but it didn't work out. Together with the Paradigm and her mecha, we destroyed 99% of the Imagined Order combat power. The situation with Gino is even more interesting, and if you haven't read the comic, you might think he never even appeared in the Fortnite story. As it turned out, he was also at the Collider during the event, where his daughters, the Mirage and the Order, fought him. While the Order managed to survive the fight, her sister and their dad were literally atomized by the Zero Point's epicenter. The story of the Imagined Order basically ends in the Zero War arc. This is hinted at by the words of the Foundation, who said that their worst enemy was gone forever, and now the island could live peacefully. If only the Seven knew what a mess they would stir up later, they would have thought twice about freeing the Zero Point. In short, to put it in super simple terms, for several thousand years, the Imagined Order kept the Zero Point under their control to manage the loop and protect it from any problems. These guys literally decided what loot loopers would get and how the storm would move in the next match. But with the defeat of the Order, the Seven freed the 0 point, essentially destroying the loop, and that's when all hell broke loose. So, Chapter 3, Season 2 was the last time we directly encountered the Order. Although, since then, mentions of these guys have occasionally surfaced in the Zero War comic. If you read it to the end, you can find out that Gino isn't dead at all, but is planning his return to the island, and he's apparently planning it very, very meticulously, since 2 whole years have passed since the promised continuation of his story. Since we've already touched upon the Seven, it's time to talk about the most mysterious crew in Fortnite history. The story of the Seven remains the most confusing right now, as it's impossible to say exactly what happened to the legendary squad that saved the island. The Seven were actually the ones who initiated this storyline. Who would have thought that launching a visitor's rocket in would lead to us now fighting a dark presence who crawled out of Spirit Realm after beating up Godzilla and Kong? But that's beside the point, because throughout 3 whole chapters, the identities of all 7 members were gradually revealed to us. I still remember how we speculated about who would be next in this group, and how they would be introduced into the story. It was such a cliffhanger that when the Foundation appeared during the 0 point crisis, the whole community was literally on edge. But how did it happen that the Seven disappeared all at once? And they disappeared so completely that we haven't heard from them for 2 years now. Yep, 2 years have passed. I suggest we go through each member of the legendary team to figure out who has a chance to return, and who has probably left us forever. I think I should start with the Visitor, whom we've known the longest. The community still speculates that Donald Mustard himself is hiding behind the mask of that spacesuit. The Visitor was absorbed by the Chrome and most likely ended up imprisoned in the last reality, but then returned to Fortnite OG in the summer of 2025. A similar fate befell the Scientist and the Origin, who were unlucky enough to be in the Chrome study lab. In just a couple of seconds, they literally turned into a shiny goo, and after that, their fate remained unknown. It's entirely possible that the last reality managed to turn them into their puppets, but there's no confirmation of that either. The situation with the Foundation is even more interesting. We literally don't know what happened to him, or where he went after he and Jonesy managed to defeat Gino and then return to the island. Any mention of the Foundation has literally vanished from the storyline. So it's very difficult to talk about his fate right now, but I would venture to guess that he was also absorbed by the Chrome at some point, and is now chilling out somewhere on the last reality's flying saucer. The Paradigm is probably the most tragic of all the 7. Not only did she have to save the island from the Chrome invasion alone, but she also sacrificed her life for the Loopers. Her last words indicated that she initiated some kind of merge to rebuild the island. Most likely, the merge is a connection of realities, because as we remember, the Chapter 4 map literally looked like a patchwork quilt of different pieces, and there's a huge probability that the Paradigm actually died after the final event. The 2 sisters, the Imagined and the Order and Mirage, share a similar fate. In that regard, the Order was the luckiest of them all. After losing her sister during the Zero War, she realized she no longer wanted to be a part of the 7 and left the team. In fact, Order is already appeared on Chapter 7 Island, but already disappeared. So, what do we have in the end? 4 people are imprisoned by the last reality, 2 are dead, and 1 is missing. Not the most pleasant situation, but I personally hold on to the hope that over all this time, the 7 have become an integral part of Fortnite, without which the story will never be the same.